Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Alexandria Butler, and Alex is running in the 9th District in Texas. And we're going to talk a little bit about her campaign, and then we're going to talk about the issue of the day. It might be the issue of the year, which is the gerrymandering. So, Alex, what made you decide to run for Congress?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I felt the tug in my spirit and my soul from the Lord. I felt God calling me to this for my whole life. I mean, and I think a lot of people always want to know what their destiny is.
Mhm.
And as you grow in grace and the knowledge of the Lord, that thing kind of starts expanding this call on your life. And you know that you're being pulled. You can sense the people saying, come over here and help us, but you're trying to figure out and piece everything together because we see through a glass half dark. But the reason why I ran is because I felt the call of my life. And then I think the extreme impetus and maybe even catalyst. Um, Outside of my grandmother passing away and telling me I was created for more. But it was when I saw Al Green um, completely disrespect President Trump. And also, he disrespected young DJ, a cancer patient who's also um, a a quote unquote secret service honorary secret service member.
Mhm.
I just felt that that was that kind of disrespect. Um, Let me know that this man did not need to have a seat anymore in Congress. Then to see that he was uncontested by Republicans, so
Mhm.
they're allowing him to do this. So that actually was kind of the impetus and the driving force that said, this is the seat you'll be running for. And it was confirmed by God. And literally, as I've stepped into this call, it's just like a path has been created by God for me in this avenue. So that's why I chose to run.
So, are you having a good time? Is it fun?
Yes, I mean, it's like they say that when it doesn't feel like work, when it's something that you love, it'll never feel like work,
Right.
right? So I love it. And this is crazy coming from me. Anybody that knows me personally knows my personality type is INFJ. So that means I'm very introverted. I do not gain like energy from being in large crowds or talking to people. And usually I'm like a hermit, like in my house, homebody. I don't want to talk to anybody, if I don't have to. I have to like prepare myself, to be in a large social setting. But for some reason, campaigning is like second nature. All I
Mhm.
have to do is show up and be myself, and
Right.
people just love it.
That's great. So, how long have you been campaigning?
Ooh. Let's just say we were campaigning before the campaign, and the reason being is because um, before I said yes to running, I was the VP of communications for Urban Conservatives of America, which is a grassroots movement in which we educate people about conservative principles and policies,
Mhm.
and we make sure we don't necessarily tell people who to vote for, but we definitely give them the tools necessary and needed to make wise and informed voting decisions when they're in the booth. And
Mhm.
so um, I can say that I have officially started campaigning through UCA before I said yes to vote because we were already canvassing this district in particular because our eyes have been on this district thanks to the antics of Al Green.
Wow. So, you obviously decided to run before this whole redistricting thing hit the fan,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, absolutely. And I think something should be said about that because when I said yes to running and I counted the cost, prayed over it, did all of that good stuff that you do when you make a very serious decision, life-changing decision like this. um, Many Republicans came to me and said, "Don't run. It's insurmountable. There's no point in running." And then you've got this other half that say, "Wow, finally somebody has the fortitude to run against this guy." They're excited, but then they're like, "Ooh, I looked at the data and it's not looking favorable. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna, And so." With that being said, I said yes before it looked like it could be accomplished. And
Mm-hmm.
now, and I'm saying like before the data was looking like plus, I think it was like plus 24 Democrats. So that's like literally no possibility of any Republican winning this seat, right? And even though I saw those numbers, I said yes to God because I knew that He would make a way where there was no way. And that a lot of times when man closes a door, God will open a window if He has to. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just took that leap of faith because I just trusted that God knew what He was doing, right? And and with that being said, it's turning out in my favor because after the redistricting is said and done and all the smoke clears and the dust settles, we're looking at a plus 15 Republican district.
Okay. Okay. Um, I think the next year in politics is going to be very interesting.
It is because
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see who's going to jump in. Now that things are more favorable, right? Now
Uh-huh.
that they don't have to have any real like courage, or they don't they see it's favorable for Republicans. So I'm expecting some big name Republicans to try to jump in this race now.
Really.
Yes, absolutely. I'm
I,
expecting that.
and give you competition.
Oh, absolutely.
So I hope you've covered all the bases so that in case somebody steps in, that you're not gonna get knocked off.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said about starting as early as we did, starting in March when a lot of these establishment politicians and these career politicians, they will make an appearance in certain neighborhoods, wave their wand, spend some money, make it look really nice. I'm kind of a David in a Goliath situation here.
Yeah.
So, we don't have as much money as a lot of these career politicians that have been in the game, for so long. So we're having to be creative. We're having to do things a little differently. We're having to engage in warfare just a little differently. And we have prayer warriors, we have intercessors, we have people that are praying for me personally, praying for the campaign, praying for the campaign team. We're depending on God completely in this campaign and in this fight. And so we don't have millions of dollars at our disposal to just say, hey, I can drop some money here, hire some block walkers, hire some people to do this, hire people to pay for Alexandria's history and background checks and all of this and that and smear her. We don't have that. So we have to go by faith. That's all that's all we've got right now.
So other than the gerrymandering issue, what issues are you running on?
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to check out my platform, alexandriabutlercampaign.org, you can check out everything. You can donate. You can check out what I believe. But one of the biggest things that I believe that I stand for right now, um, the border issue. Okay. Now, our president has done a very good job of closing the border, and I want to make sure that it stays closed. To me, it's a non-negotiable. Okay. Completely deal breaker. If a person stands before you and says, oh, uh, these immigrants are not criminals, this, that, and the third. No, we have to actually stand on principle regarding that and be absolute. And so that's one of my planks in my platform. Another one that is actually quite popular, and it was surprising about how popular it is amongst my constituents, is that I believe in a pathway to trust for those that have paid their debt to society and were formerly felons. Okay. And we're
Mhm.
talking about individuals that are civilized, that have reacclimated into society. These individuals may have committed a felony in the past. And we're not talking pedophilia. Okay. We're not talking about serious threats to children and society. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about maybe somebody committed a financial crime in the past. Maybe there was a fight they got into and somebody was hurt pretty badly or something. But they've paid their debt to society. They've completed parole. They've done the necessary requirements. So I'm presenting a legislation for a pathway to trust, which will affect a proportionate amount of people in District 9, even after the redistricting. Okay, so felons have a hard time reacclimating into society because they lack the confidence and wherewithal to get a job, because they know this is going to pop up on their background check. They know that they do not have all of their American benefits that the rest of us can operate in. We can vote. We can feel confident about searching for a job, even if we don't feel we have all of the prerequisites for a job. We can still have more confidence to apply for a job than a person that has committed a felony in the past. So, coupled with Alice Johnson as the prison czar, we see that Trump has been pardoning individuals that are in prison. I believe that this pathway of trust, this type of legislation, will complete what Donald Trump is doing with his First Step Act, with those things, because it will deal with those that are already out, that have already been searching for jobs, that have already, you know, trying to raise their families and provide for their families. So this is another opportunity for them to do so. So the pathway of trust will be legislation that I will present as the next Congresswoman of District 9.
Yeah, I've been an um political junkie for years, years, and I have never seen s- a landscape that's so violent and so hateful. Uh,
Absolutely.
and when I look at my Facebook feed and stuff,
Yes.
it's not, it's not a question of, oh, I don't like this guy. It's
Right.
pure hatred.
It's hatred and
Yeah.
vitriol.
So we're in a dark abyss right now.
Yes, we are. Very
Heading,
sunken place.
yep. And do you see any way out?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Um, I I do see the light. I think that the only hope for our country, and especially for the state of Texas, because all eyes are on Texas right now. Um, as Texas goes, so goes the rest of this country. And I think the same could be said when we see places like New York and Los Angeles. We, Texas is one of the last bastions of freedom in a state this size. Okay. Um, and a lot of people, I always go back to the Bible, because to me it's the basic instructions before leaving Earth. And the word of God tells us that the days would grow colder, that the love of many would grow cold because iniquity is abounding. And so what we see here is a lack of civility that leads to an iniquitous country of individuals who don't know right from wrong, who don't know up from down, who don't know their head from a hole in the ground. These individuals they are not being taught correctly. They're not being educated. They're being fed by the media. They were dumbed down in school. They're being spoon fed hate from the media itself. They're learning how to hate. Hate
Right.
is something that you have to learn. As a child, you're not malicious, you're not hateful, you're not vengeful as a child. You learn to hate through your family, through, your friendships, through things like that you learn in society. And so I don't expect society necessarily to get better outside of people crying out to God and some sort of a revival occurring, and God placing individuals who aren't perfect, right? We see Donald Trump is not perfect, right? But we do see that he is one of the first people to mention the name of Jesus Christ, in the chambers, in the Oval Office, in the White House, standing before the public. He mentions Jesus Christ. You can almost hear an audible gasp when he mentions this name, because it has power. The name of Jesus has power. And so I see that when individuals who are not afraid to call upon God, and it's not about forcing God on people, but it's understanding that we are in a spiritual battle. And so those that have been tested, tried and true and prepared for this battle, they are the individuals that can walk us through these dark times, because there is a light that is on the inside of us that can lead everybody through the darkness. And so those of us with that light, it's time to lead America out of this valley, out of this darkness. We have got to do this, because if we don't, we're going to allow the evil to take over. We saw what happened during the Holocaust. The only thing necessary for the overtake of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that is what has been done over and over. Nothing. You see, my opponent, Al Green, has been uncontested. This is good men doing nothing and then complaining about the overtake of evil. How dare we complain when we're doing nothing? So if we have done all that we can do, it's time to stand and fight, because there is always a time to fight. Complacency, no more. We can't allow complacency anymore. And as Republicans, as a tried and true Republican, it is time for us to get a backbone. We cannot shy away from racial remarks. We cannot shy away from put downs. We can't get quiet when they try to throw us under the bus and say, oh, you're gerrymandering. Well, they've been gerrymandering for years and have set the precedent. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we're playing by their rules that they've set. Okay, it would be unethical if we went outside of that, you know? So we're following the precedent that they've set. If they can gerrymander, so can we.
Wow. So, when you read something or you see something throughout, my lifetime, Black people have always gravitated towards the Democratic Party.
Yes,
Um, Even though the Democratic Party has not done much for Black people.
at all.
What made you decide to become a Republican?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I was raised by my grandmother, who was a Democrat. Okay. But I know I started looking at, because when I got older, and what helped me, it was high school government is what helped me start to learn about conservatism and Republican priorities and policies. And I had asked my teacher, my government teacher, Mr. Wentz, I'm asking him, what's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat? And this is what he tells me: Democrats help people, Republicans are greedy. I didn't accept that
Wow.
answer. As a gifted student, um, I was the type of person to always ask why. I was curious, very inquisitive since a young child. It's annoying to adults, but because it actually got me sent out of that class that day. I said, I don't believe you. I said, that's not a good enough answer. I said, you wouldn't be happy with an answer like that from me. You would want me to give to explain why I came to that conclusion, because you are not okay with condensed information. So because I said this to him in class, I got sent out. He apologized later, right? But it was embarrassing at that time. But that him getting upset like that is what made me inquire about what a Republican was. So over the years, I started learning about what is a Republican. I started looking to see about the history of the party, and I started realizing that all these people were Republican. Why were they Republican? And so these whys kept causing me to go back to the beginning of the Republican Party, and then I found the answer. They fought to end slavery. So
Mm.
that started me on this journey to learn what a Republican was. And did I become a Republican immediately? No, because people like George Bush kind of ruined Republicanism for me for a little while. Because as I was starting to be awakened towards Republicanism, I saw that George Bush was a warmonger, and I was not okay with that. And then I felt he lied to get us in a war against Saddam Hussein, when I remember America giving him weapons of mass destruction years ago. but we never admitted that publicly. I saw the optics with the war, the shock and awe. I was in awe at America's ability, our prowess. It was so beautiful to me. But when I was thinking about, this whole thing and just this, how everything kind of came full circle, um, I think Bush kind of was a turnoff for me for a little while. But the biggest turnoff was Barack Hussein Obama. Whew, I tell you what. So when I saw this man for the first time, and a lot of people, don't believe me when I say this, but I'm a spiritual person, always have been. I was raised in church. My grandmother raised me very strict. Like I said, we were raised like conservatives. My grandma voted Democrat. So when I saw Barack Hussein Obama for the first time, it was like I saw him on TV, and it was like a split screen or something. It was like something happened to my screen. He looked like a snake. He shifted into a reptile and then shifted back into a human. And I was like, I'd never seen that happen before. I said, God, I don't understand this, but I don't like this guy. And I just felt like he spoke out of both sides of his mouth a lot. And then when I saw who his pastor was, Jeremiah Wright, and this man was quoted as saying, God damn America,
Right.
my heart sunk. And I said to my grandmother, and she was angry after I said this. I said, the Antichrist could be a black man, and all of Black America would fall for the okey doke. And she said, what do you mean? I said, this man is not of God. And I said, you are a Christian and you're voting for him? I said, why? She said, don't you want to see the first black president? I said, absolutely. Absolutely. I said, but this man is pro-abortion and he's trying to pretend he's not. He's pro LGBT takeover. I said, and he's trying to pretend he's not. I said, this man is not what you see. He is not who he claims he is. And she said, well, you have no way of doing that. We argued about Barack Hussein Obama. Okay. And I told her, I said, I won't vote for him. And I think what sealed the deal for me was when he won and I saw Jesse Jackson have the audacity to weep like this was some great thing. Oh, I never thought I'd see the first black president. And I was angry because I'm tired of seeing these types of black individuals that are completely amoral and immoral being put up on pedestals before America, like shucking and jiving, staying on this mindset that somehow Democrat good, Republican bad. And so he was the reason why I was awakened and I became a Republican. And my
You know,
grandma was upset about that.
I remember seeing Jesse Jackson when Obama won the presidency.
Right.
I remember him crying
He
also.
wept. Yes.
Okay. So uh, Jesse Jackson's been in politics a long time. He should have known better, right?
You would think, because I don't understand a man like Jesse Jackson weeping over this Kenyan-born Democrat that was selected out of Illinois. I don't understand. I actually felt secondhand embarrassment for Jesse Jackson crying like that on TV over this. It was just embarrassing to me. And I didn't know how to feel after that. My grandmother, she cried, and I asked her why she was crying. And for her, because she lived through certain things, she felt like she would never in her lifetime see a black president. And so I said, okay, well, you've got your black president, so racism is over now, right?
Mm.
And that's when she kind of looked at me like, why would you say that? And I just
Mhm.
said, well, that just showed you America's not racist. And she didn't like that. She just kind of looked at me and was just like, you don't understand racism. And I mean, she was like, she got emotional about this.
Mhm.
And then, I started watching Obama as time progressed. He did everything I told my grandmother he would do, right? He did every single thing. He was named by Newsweek, I believe, as the first gay president. He put rainbow lights on the White House for the very first time that had ever happened in my lifetime. Um, he was the greatest divider in chief we ever had. My biggest problem with him, and see, I'm a person that researches, I never take condensed information ever. I will never hear something on the news and say, "Oh, okay, I believe that." I will always go and research both sides. I will go and I mean, I will stay up late at night doing this. I am a geek when it comes to stuff like that. Always have been. You're talking to somebody who at the age of 7 read the dictionary and the Bible cover to cover, begged my grandma to order, because that we didn't have internet back then, so I begged her to order the Encyclopedia Britannica so I could read every volume cover to cover. So
Mhm.
research is my thing. It's something I love to do. And so when I started researching a lot of these things that this man put forth, especially reading the police report from the Trayvon Martin case and finding out that this young man made it home and then went back to fight Zimmerman after he made it home safely. Oh, that changed everything for me, because I watched as our president at the time, Barack Hussein Obama, said that could have been my son, and
Right.
caused this emotional stir amongst the Black community. And they don't even know what happened. They don't know the technicalities behind the case. They don't know the law. They don't know that this young child made it home first. They don't know any of that. His pride caused him to go back and end up losing his life that night.
Mhm.
Zimmerman had every right to defend himself, and I'll go on the record saying that it was just. It was absolutely just. I read the court case. I read everything. I followed that thing to the nth degree. I didn't just watch the clips from CNN. Okay. I watched and researched, poured myself into this thing, and watched as the president of the United States used this to divide the people.
You, I know that there's just a certain amount of seats that will be contested.
Yes.
Okay. So the majority of seats up for election will not be contested, meaning the press won't cover it, the parties won't, endorse or anything.
Nope.
And people like you who step up to the plate and try to make a difference.
Yes.
If you're not if you're not recognized for what you're trying to do, how do you overcome that?
Ooh. Um, this is where we leverage our organization and where we leverage social media to the best of our abilities. Social media is free. Okay. Um, this is where we use our creativity. What we're seeing a lot of is people with a lot of money, they can buy their way in. We're seeing this behind the scenes. And we're also seeing, because politics is such a dirty, dirty game. Okay. Um, so people have their favorites, and usually it's the one with the most money, right? They might look at you and say, "Wow, you're a great candidate, right? How much have you raised?" "Oh, roughly $6,000." That
Right.
kind of makes people like look at you like, you know, and so this is where we have to depend on faith and creativity. We have to leverage the free things that we have. What I usually do, I will see events in the area, and I'll show up at those events and I'll introduce myself. It's word of mouth is one of the best ways still to this day. Word of mouth is the best advertising that you can possibly do.
You
And
know,
so that's
the
where we're at on that.
the criteria is a candidate is judged by how much money that they can raise.
Yes,
So it's ingrained in people's uh, brains that, oh,
absolutely.
if this candidate is not raising X amount of dollars, he can't be or she can't be a viable candidate.
Right.
That's got to change.
It's got to it can't be about the money, because this is where you get these career politicians and establishment Republicans that end up in these seats and not doing any of the thing they promised you that they would do while they were running. So these people make a lot of these lofty promises. They say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they've got all the money. They're the rhinestone cowboys showing up on the scene, swooping in, getting all the votes because they look the part, but they don't act the part once they get the seat. And I think it's time that as Republicans, we start looking at this history. How many of these people kept their campaign promises, and how many times were we sorely disappointed when they got the money, got into this position, right? They didn't do any of the things that they promised they would do, and then the district winds up looking worse for wear. And so I think it's time that we start observing these patterns, right? And stop doing the same thing over and over, depending on, oh, this person's got so much money, they've got this, they've got that, right? They're the better candidate because they can raise the money. Well, they're popular, right? People, it's like human nature to give into what's popular, because many people are tribal and they follow trends, and if something appears to be trending, they'll go wholeheartedly after it, and then in the end get badly burned because this person isn't what they thought it would be. So I think what we need to start doing, just like we did with Donald Trump, right? We said, you know what? A lot of people were like, I don't really like how he talks, I don't really like this, but he's standing on principle. His policies are on point. What this man does is exactly what I want. This man has done everything that we needed him to do for this country. How did he know that that's what needed to be done? Right? So we may not like somebody, based on they act a way we don't think they should act, or they might say something that they don't, whatever. We didn't vote for Donald Trump because he was rich. Right? We didn't vote for him because he was some career politician and sounds like he knows what he's talking about. We voted for this man because we knew he was the right man for the job, because he wasn't a politician, because he was a businessman, and because America is being run like a business by business people. So we knew that he was the right man for the job, and he has been groomed for this position by God himself. Whether or not people like his history or his lifestyle or anything, it does not matter. They don't know Donald Trump, the man, and how often he prayed for people behind the scenes and the things that he's done for people just on the street. So, in like manner, I'm not saying that I'm just like Donald Trump. I'm just saying I do support the man. I am pro MAGA. However, um, people may see that she's only raised this amount of money, right? In the amount of time that she's been canvassing and campaigning. However, they should know that this person is not going to pull a switcheroo when she gets this seat. She's not making lofty promises. She's making realistic promises that actually will have an effect on District 9. So that's what we're hoping. Just like you said, the money, it's going to come. Right now, we're kind of in a slow season. That usually the summer months up until after school begins are pretty slow politically wise. But in these slow months, we actually shocked our fundraisers because we raised more money than a lot of other candidates that they're raising money for during this slow season. So they're excited and looking forward to when things start picking up. We know that the money's going to come. We're trusting God. We are just absolutely trusting God, because if he got me this far, he's going to get me all the way there.
Okay, I contacted you because of the redistricting issue. How
Yes.
do you feel about that?
So, like we mentioned before, I did join the race before ever knowing anything about the redistricting, right? And so prior to this, the current map, it includes places like Sunnyside, the Third Ward, which are known as the Hood, the ghetto, in the Houston area. Now, with the new district, those areas won't be included. I think they will now be swallowed up by District 7 and 18. And so this part, I was ready to fight in these areas. I mean, these are the areas we've already been canvassing and getting to know the people and the residents in this area. But when I looked at the new map, and this is going to be very interesting to me. It's just so interesting. So when I first moved to Texas, well, when I first moved to Texas, I lived near Austin. I lived in Leander. However, when I moved down here to Houston, I lived in LaPorte. The new map includes LaPorte now. So it'll include LaPorte, Channelview, Baytown, Deer Park, Galena, this area, which is an area when I first got here, I met a lot of people there, made a lot of good friends, met a lot of business owners, already in essence canvassed the area before I ever thought about running. So it's very interesting. Now I moved out of LaPorte and now living in the third ward area, and now it's just very interesting how things come full circle. So with the redistricting, I'm not mad about it. I embrace it. I'm and let's say this. I'm not for gerrymandering. Okay. I'm not for gerrymandering. However, I do understand that this precedent was not set by the Republican Party. Okay. This is something that has been pushed by the left over and over and over again because they're very much so racists. And so they do everything by race. They want us bound by race. They want us to always look at color, and they are big on identity politics. And so this type of gerrymandering is political. This is more or less political party districting map. It's not necessarily done by race, although a specific race happens to be the majority in this district, which is Hispanic. And so now, after the redistricting, and I'm going to tell you why I like it, because now I believe it's two districts are majority Black, two majority Hispanic now. Now, why are the Democrats complaining? They're complaining because these type of people, even though it's a majority Hispanic in this district now, they're complaining because Hispanics are predominantly voting Republican right now because they see the writing on the wall with the Democrat Party, and they know that those policies will not help them. They know Republican policies are what's going to bring them the money that they so desire. And it's not about greed. It's about providing for our families, our children, and our children's children. And that is important because wise people leave inheritance to their children's children. And so this redistricting, I don't hate it. I mean, I accept it. I like it, and I don't have a problem whatsoever because I feel that if you're a good statesman, you should be able to campaign no matter what your lines are in your district. If you're good at what you're doing, you should be able to have the policies and principles and be wise enough to go into any part of this area and get a vote.
My idea of this whole redistricting thing is, that they're redrawing the maps. So a candidate doesn't know who his or her constituents will be. And this town might be in your district today, but if it's redrawn, it might be not in your district tomorrow. So it leaves candidates up in the air, not knowing exactly where to focus their attention on.
Yeah, that can have that can affect some people. I've noticed that because I've noticed that for some people it does cause them to struggle. So what I've been doing is I've just taken both maps and we're campaigning in both because why not? Why
Mm-hmm.
not? We don't know what the end result's going to be. So to me, I think this is the time where we leverage social media. We use social media to our advantage. We start broadcasting all over Houston and get that name recognition out there. And then, we show up in person in both districts as they're drawn. So I still show up in the third ward. I still show up in Pasadena, right? I still show up in these areas in the original and the new map. And yeah, it does kind of broaden this area and kind of because Houston is huge. Okay, we're just in my district as it stands right now. Before the redistricting, I have 750,000 constituents in this district. So that's if that gives you any kind of view into how large, and now even larger because now I'm campaigning in both maps, which I've been given the energy to do it. So we just kind of do both. We just campaign in both sides. And even if they can't vote for me, like let's say that it doesn't get through, it doesn't go through, something happens, whatever. They know people in the district as it currently stands. So they can always spread my name no matter what. So I'm just campaigning in both. For me, I just think that's the wisest thing to do right now.
But it's going to throw everything up in the air, right?
Uh, yes and no. I think that the more people get your name out there, the better. And for me, I think everything is already up in the air because I mean we don't know who's going to win anyway. So for me, that kind of unknown, it doesn't bother me at all because nothing is certain in this day and age. So I'm just kind of going by faith anyway. So all I can do is just roll with the punches and take life as it comes.
So has the mainstream media contacted you to do interviews and stuff?
Well, I have been on OAN News. To me, that's mainstream because they do have a seat in the press room at the White House. So um, I have been interviewed by Dan Ball at OAN. Before I was a candidate, I've been on the Isaiah Factor, which is a very popular show here in Houston on Fox 26. But as it stands now, no, we have not had any more invites just yet. I've noticed that the mainstream media tends to give a lot of media play to Jasmine Crockett, Al Green,
Right.
and these individuals because I guess it's better for ratings. They don't really want to support a candidate, that's running for against these individuals. But it without them bringing that awareness, that's kind of like I said before, where we leverage social media and just kind of utilize social media to make ourselves famous and get that name recognition out there.
So, what social media platforms are you using?
Absolutely. I'm using Facebook,
Hmm?
TikTok. We also use Instagram. We're getting ready to start a Twitter page and have that going. It's just it, there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes to be able to create content in order to place on social media. So it's like a full-time job, right? And so we have to have a balance in which we can leverage all of our social media accounts, right? And our
Mhm.
personal, like, because we have our campaign accounts and then we have our own personal accounts
Right,
from, over the years, our own networks that we've built up over that
right.
time. So yeah.
So,
So
do you think
basically all of it.
at some point with social media and people, uh, politicians and candidates use social media, do you think at some point the mainstream media will wither away?
It already is. Um, it already is because the effect they used to have on people is not the same. It's like I think the people that watch the news now, I think they're really just watching local news and they don't really even understand that the local media is also biased, just like what your ABC, your NBC, all of these, even your local media, your local news stations are biased inherently, and so we're seeing that a lot of that the influence that the mainstream media has once had no longer has that effect. So it's like the witchcraft doesn't have the power it had at one time. And so we're seeing that more people are getting their news from social media. So you're seeing the ABCs, the New York Posts, the all these newspapers and all of these even new and let me say this, right? I threw newspapers for about what 12 years. Okay. I was a newspaper girl, and that was a dying brand. Okay, the newspaper died while I was throwing them. What happened was the people that were receiving the newspaper were sick and tired of the liberal hogwash that was appearing on their front page, the hatred for Donald Trump. I know that that contributed to the death of the newspaper, and so um, I saw that slowly dying as I was throwing newspapers and getting less and less subscribers to the newspaper. And people might say, "Oh, that's for old people." But see, that's the thing is that it's not just for old people. It's for people that live in rural areas, people that, that maybe don't watch TV, people that, these individuals, there's millions of them. Amish people like the newspaper. Amish people because they sell cattle, they have agriculture, big ag, you read, your Dow Jones Industrial, all of that is in the newspaper. And so that died while I was throwing newspapers. It died because of all the hatred for Trump. Then I'm seeing today, I believe that's the same reason why the mainstream has died. When Trump came out saying fake news, nobody had ever said that before. And so when people are presented a new way of thinking, it's very difficult at the beginning for them to just jump on and just believe that what they've been believing and the kingdom they've built up around this frame of thought is wrong. And so they enter a stage of cognitive dissonance. Now we're in the stage of finding out. We are in the stage where people are finding out that they have been lied to by the media. They have been building up mental constructs around lies. And so these walls are tumbling down right now. And so now they're seeing that it is fake news. I don't believe that. I don't receive that. And so you're seeing those mainstream news media, they are now putting their clips on social media because social media is bigger than them now.
Mhm.
People don't want to watch TV. They're watching their phones now. They're in their phones. So yeah, it's dead.
So, final thoughts on politics in general or and your campaign.
Ooh-wee. Okay, so I am not a politician, and politics in general, it's and I know I said it earlier, it's a dirty game, and it is because a lot of people will make friends with you, will even position themselves into your campaign in order to get dirt on you, okay? In order to find out things about your character and what you do, try to pretend they're your friend, in order to twist up on you later and mistreat you and tell lies about you. So when I say the political game is a dirty game, that's what I mean. So you have to have discernment. And so politics, what we're seeing with the hatred for Donald Trump, the political game that the public is playing, you know, imagine that on a smaller scale for a congressional seat or a Senate seat. Imagine that. You've got local people telling lies about you, making up stories, pretending this, pretending that, trying to smear your image so they can get the people, their establishment people in there that are not good for the country or the state or the city. And so politics right now, I think those that are playing that politics as usual game are in for a very big surprise because the people that are coming up now are those that were underdogs at one time. I'm an underdog, okay? JD Vance was an underdog, okay? True American underdog stories, this is the season for that. And so I think every bit of weapon and warfare that the left or even people on the right that don't want you to have the seat because they feel they've been a career politician this long and you don't deserve to be there. They're going to, I don't think any of the weaponry or the warfare is going to stand in this time. I think people want truth. They want something different. They want a younger, because we're seeing the millennials are a voting age now, and so is Gen Z. So they're not wanting politics as usual. That game is out. And so these individuals are not going to succeed in this, what they're doing. We see Trump won. We see JD Vance is winning. I mean, they're winning, right? These are individuals that were smeared. They had a smear campaign, whisper campaigns, all kind of foolishness launched at them. This is the example of what God is doing in the lesser seats, those that have authority, but maybe not as much as the vice president and the president, but still have authority over these regions and these principalities. I think what we're going to see is politics as usual is done. It's over. The media is done. The game has changed. Now you have to really be resolute and absolute. And so with this, and I do want to also say, I believe in healthy competition. Okay. I don't believe in being mean and smearing people just because they're running against me. I don't believe in that at all because like I said, I'm a Christian. So I don't believe in gossip. I don't do any of those things. But I do believe that what we're getting ready to see is a serious battle for the soul of our nation. Okay. And this is occurring right now. And so the powers that be, the swamp, we have to understand and use discernment and understand what we're fighting against. It is a very dark force that we're fighting against. And I believe God is going to get the glory in the end.
So if somebody wants to volunteer for your campaign or give you a contribution, how could they contact you?
Absolutely. You can email me info@alexandriabutlercampaign.org, or you can go to the website. You can donate from the website, alexandriabutlercampaign.org. And let me make sure I gave my email correctly. info@alexandriabutlercampaign.org. And then
Okay,
the website is alexandriabutlercampaign.org. You can also look me up on WinRed, which is the Republican donating platform. Just type in my name in the search. Or just click on the state of Texas and it'll show you all the seats that are being run for. I'm in there. I'm filed. You'll see my face pop up. You can donate there on that platform, or you can donate from our website.
great. Alex, the best of luck. This has been a
Thank you.
really nice conversation. So you've been listening to Alexandria Butler, who is running in the 9th district in Texas.
Yes.
Hopefully it'll stay the ninth, right?
Yes, hopefully.
And I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Focus on the Candidates. If you like the show, please subscribe and like my YouTube channel. Thank you, Alexandria. Thank you,
Thank you for
everybody.
having me.
Have a great day.
Thank you. God bless.